Okay, I need to talk about creation today. I'm going to start up this video and hope that it keeps running. It's just a bunch of pictures that I took sometime this year from my backyard, so hopefully that'll keep running. And I'm going to read a quote from someone called G. Richard Bozarth in The Meaning of Evolution from American Atheist, page 30, February 1978. And the quote is, "Christianity has fought, still fights, and will continue to fight science to the desperate end over evolution, because evolution destroys utterly and finally the very reason Jesus' earthly life was supposedly made necessary. Destroy Adam and Eve in the original sin, and in the rubble you will find the sorry remains of the Son of God. If Jesus was not the Redeemer who died for our sins, and this is what evolution means, then Christianity is nothing." Again, that's a quote from G. Richard Bozarth, Meaning of Evolution, American Atheist, page 30, February 1978. Excuse me. And of course, that's shows the absolute bankrupt purposelessness of naturalism, specifically atheism, because that's their religion, is naturalism. And hey there in the chat, I got a bunch of windows to juggle, so I'm kind of trying to make sure that nothing blanks out on me while I'm talking. So anyway, I won't be paying a lot of attention to the chat. But what I have here is, in addition to that quote, the problem is that they, first of all, misrepresent what Christianity means and what it hinges on. If you remember my video on the Bible and science, where I state that science being so unstable, so continually contradicting itself and replacing its beliefs, that it would be foolish to base any kind of unchanging fact or truth on such a thing. So the Bible does not stand or fall on what is called science at the moment. And science is not a continual progression. We know from artifacts properly examined that whether it's society or the earth itself or life, it continually rides a roller coaster, basically. It advances and it falls back. It advances and it falls back. So the whole evolutionary paradigm of continual change upward is an absolute lie. It just doesn't match the evidence. And so they try to do the same thing philosophically. They try to weave it into science. And I'm going to read from an article called "Darwinism, Survival Without Purpose" on a website called Institute for Creation Research. And of course, they would say misrepresentation. But like I said in that first quote, they're always misrepresenting us. So turnabout is fair play, although that's not my intent, or I think the intent of this article to misrepresent. But basically, I'm just going to skim through this article. It says, there's a quote, it starts with a quote from Richard Dawkins that says, "Humans have always wondered about the meaning of life. Life has no higher purpose than to perpetuate the survival of DNA. Life has no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference." And the problem with that is that evolution, which is gradual increase in order and complexity and in violation of all the known observed laws of physics, the law of entropy especially, it cannot have a direction. I mean, Dawkins is right here saying that there's no direction, but that's what the theory of evolution is. They're saying that, here's Dawkins, the atheist, saying that life has no purpose, no direction, but evolution is all about direction. It's all about increasing order from disorder in violation of the laws of entropy. So let me go on and read some more from the article here. They go on to say, "Evolution is deceptively simple yet utterly profound in its implications. The first of which is that living creatures differ from one another, and those variations arise at random without a plan or purpose." Evolution, that was they are weaving in some quotes here, and they have footnotes. let me get you the article, because I can't show that and my little slideshow that I hope has been running. I don't know if it is, because it seems to come and go, depending on what I'm looking at. And I'm going to see if I can move some windows around here, because it just seems like it doesn't want to keep running. It's showing me a black screen. So I don't know what you guys are seeing. So sorry if the screen went black, but I am trying to run a slideshow here. Anyway, it says evolution must be without plan or purpose because its core tenet is the natural selection of the fittest produced by random copying errors called mutations. Darwin was keenly aware that admitting any purposefulness whatsoever to the question of the origin of species would put his theory of natural selection on a very slippery slope. Okay, good. I'm glad you're seeing the pictures on the screen. Pulitzer Prize author Edward Hume wrote that the fact of evolution was obvious, but few could see it, so trapped were they by the human desire to find design and purpose in the world. He concluded, quote, Darwin's brilliance was in seeing beyond the appearance of design and understanding the purposeless, merciless process of natural selection of life and death in the wild, and how it is called C-U-L-L-E-D, not called, but culled, all but the most successful organisms from the tree of life, thereby creating the illusion that a master intellect had designed the world. But close inspection of the watch-like perfection of honeybees, combs, or ant trails reveals that they are a product of random, repetitive, unconscious behaviors, not conscious design. But that's the thing. Their facts that they're saying here in this quote are ridiculous, because there are laws governing these outcomes. To select is to take a subset of what already exists and throw away the rest. So it already existed. The selection process did not come up with it, did not create anything new. That's not what selection is. If you select from what already exists, then selection cannot be the engine of existence. And they don't seem to understand their contradictory words here. Because, again, if something has no purpose, as you know, if you've ever taken a statistics class, if you do the coin flipping experiment, which you must do if you're in a class like that, you will find that the more often you do a trial, which is a coin flip in that case, the closer you get to equilibrium. That is to say, there will be no trend. The more data you collect, the more attempts are made at something which has a 50-50 outcome, the closer you get to 50-50. So the longer time goes, the worse things get for natural selection and evolution in general, because it should approach equilibrium, not any kind of movement up or down. So selection and statistics are the enemy, and time are the enemy of evolution, as I've put in documents on my website. So when they talk about Darwin's brilliance of not seeing design where design obviously was, his only brilliance was in hoodwinking millions of people who hate God into thinking there was no God, and they could have their cake and eat it too. They could have their appearance of design without a designer. That's exactly what evolution and naturalism are. Greetings, more greetings in the chat. Anyway, I'm hoping you're still seeing the slideshow that I'm running on various pictures and videos that I've taken in this year so far. Anyway, they go on in the article that I posted a link to in the chat just a bit ago to say that the fact that evolution teaches that life has no purpose beyond perpetuating its own survival is not lost on teachers. One testified that teaching evolution impacted their consciences because it moved teachers away from the idea that they were born for a purpose, something completely counter to their mindset and beliefs. Well, here again, the Darwinian religious belief is that you must give up any belief except their own religious belief, which is the self-contradictory idea of purposeless direction, which is, I don't know how else to say it, but it's absurd, it's self-contradictory. Going on in the article, in a study on why children resist accepting evolution, excuse me, Yale psychologists Bloom and Weisberg concluded that the evolutionary way of viewing the world, which the authors call promiscuous teleology, makes it difficult for them to accept evolution. Children naturally see the world in terms of design and purpose. The ultimate purposelessness of evolution, and thus of life that it produces, was eloquently expressed by Professor Lawrence Krauss as follows, quote, "We're just a bit of pollution. If you got rid of us, the universe would largely be the same. We're completely irrelevant." And this is something that even many of the most ardent atheists have finally shaken loose from, is this denial of what every fiber of their being is telling them, that they were born as a result of a purposed design, and that life must have meaning. And another great example of self-contradiction is the fact that people will say, well, humans are a disease, we need to be eradicated. This was the idea of The Matrix and many other movies, that humans, that expressed by Agent Smith, that humans are like a cancer that must be eliminated or reduced and controlled, because they believe that we are a detriment to life on Earth. Well, if evolution is true, then who cares? By that own quote there of one of them, it says the universe would be largely the same if you got rid of us. We're irrelevant. Even the comedian George Carlin, that was, maybe witty, but I don't know about funny, and vulgar all the same, and spoke a lot of truth, but also spoke a lot of error. And that's the way error goes. But the thing is that he also said the idea that, when it comes to global warming and things like that, that humans are insignificant when it comes to messing with nature. Nature will go on without us. So when people will say that humans need to be gotten rid of, like the Georgia Guidestones, at least greatly reduced in quantity, they're saying that life has a purpose, because they're saying that life and nature, everything but humans, should be allowed to go on unfettered, while humans are messing with it and shouldn't do that. And that's the thing, is that, that stands in stark contrast to any kind of theism, especially the Bible, which says that the world was given to humans to manage. So we're supposed to mess with it. So when people deny that the purpose of evolution, naturalism, atheism is to destroy Christianity, their own quotes say otherwise. Even if they don't say it expressly, they're arguing it. Now, there's another section in this article that's called the textbooks, where it says, to determine what schools are teaching about religious questions such as the purpose of life, the author surveyed current science textbooks and found that they tend to teach the view that evolution is both nihilistic and atheistic. One of today's most widely used textbooks stated that, quote, evolution works without either plan or purpose. Evolution is random and undirected. Another, end quote. Another text by the same authors added that Darwin knew his theory required believing in philosophical materialism, the conviction that matter is the stuff of all existence and that all mental and spiritual phenomena are its byproducts. The authors continued, and they have a quote here of the book, Darwinian evolution was not only purposeless, but also heartless, a process in which nature ruthlessly eliminates the unfit. Suddenly, humanity was reduced to just one more species in a world that cared nothing for us. The great human mind was no more than a mass of evolving neutrons. Worst of all, there was no divine plan to guide us. And here again, they contradict themselves, because they say evolution is a continual change from disorder to order, from chaos to order, from lower to higher, from simple to complex, from primitive to evolved, or whatever term they want to use. They have to have a direction, or their whole theory falls apart, and yet their theory is based on non-direction. It's self-contradictory. Going on in the article, another text taught that humans are just a tiny, largely fortuitous and late arising twig on the enormously arborescent bush of life, and the belief that a progressive guiding force consistently pushing evolution to move in a single direction is now known to be misguided. Well, then they just shot their own theory to pieces. Because without evolution, you have no direction, you have no movement up or down. You have equilibrium, you have stasis, you have what is called in physics heat death. Nothing can happen, because it's like the coin flipping experiment. The more you flip it, the closer you get to heads 50% of the time, tails 50% of the time. So it can't go anywhere. The longer time that evolutionists make up, the worse it gets for them, because evolution can't take you anywhere. Blind processes can't take you anywhere. So there cannot be any such thing as evolution, if evolution is true. So going on in the article, many, let's see, they have another quote from the one about brutal survival, that the idea of evolution is not directed toward a final goal or state. And they say that this idea is more difficult for people to accept. Well, that's because it's absurd, not because they have a religious belief. They go on, one major text openly teaches that humans were created by a blind, deaf, and dumb watchmaker, namely natural selection, which is totally blind to the future. Well, if that's true, then where is progress coming from? And a quote from there, humans came from the same evolutionary source as every other species. It is natural selection of selfish genes. How can that be compatible with evolution? That has given us our bodies and our brains. Natural selection explains the whole of life. No, it doesn't. The diversity of life, the complexity of life, and the apparent design of life. Apparent design. In other words, they're saying, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe that if something looks designed, then it must have been designed, which by that same stupid logic, you should be able to look at, say, a Boeing 747 and say it was an accident of nature, because you're saying the people who designed it are accidents of nature. So how can there be any such thing as a designer? Just because things are biological doesn't mean they're not engineered. Now you get into people going to the other extreme and saying that must mean simulation theory. Everything is engineered. Well, I agree that everything is engineered, but not that it's a simulation, because that term, as I've explained before, has no meaning if we're part of the simulation. It's our reality. So calling it all a simulation doesn't mean anything except there's a designer. The only question is the nature of the designer. If you say it's just another evolved being, then you're saying you believe in evolution. And here again, you defeat the purpose by moving the goalpost endlessly, which answers no question at all. It's a cop-out. If you keep moving the goalpost back in time to an endless succession of designers creating the next thing, then you answer no question at all, because you still run up against the brick wall of the first cause, which is who started it all. Somewhere along the line, there has to be a supernatural first cause, which is a designer by definition who started all the other designers. So it answers no question. It's an endless regression, an eternity of evading the question of how anything got started at all. Who was the first designer? So it still doesn't answer the question. Anyway, they go on in the article about implications for the claims of purposelessness in life and the denial of design when the evidence of it is all around us. Especially the deeper you look, the more in biology, especially you look, the more it screams design. Now, their implications are that they say here, many texts are very open about the implications of Darwinism for theism. They think they're attacking theism, but they're really attacking themselves. So anyway, they go on here. One teaches that Darwin's immeasurably important contribution to science was to show that despite life's apparent evidence of design and purpose, mechanistic causes explain all biological phenomena. That's absurd. The text adds that by coupling undirected, purposeless variation to the blind, uncaring process of natural selection, Darwin made theological or spiritual explanations of the life process as superfluous. The author concludes by noting that it was Darwin's theory of evolution that provided a crucial plank to the platform of mechanisms and materialism that has been the stage of most Western thought. So we can see also that Western thought is based upon this absurdity, that there must always be change upward. And they even invoke, this is called uniformitarianism also, but they invoke catastrophism, which is creationism, essentially, and saying, oh, it just keeps happening over and over. And again, you have the endless regression, which explains nothing at all about origins, which is the irony of Darwin's book title, Origin of the Species. Well, he was, if you read it, he's actually talking about origin of particular species, but he never, and they never, get into the question of the first thing that started it all. And they've invented various things like, was it Dawkins, or I think it was Stephen J. Gould, who invented the hopeful monster theory, so-called punctuated equilibrium, where a dinosaur lays an egg and out hatches a monkey. That's the absurdity they come to. Or I've read about the jumping gene theory, where bacteria suddenly left their normal routine and jumped over to someplace else and messed with its genome. And it's like, this is still just stirring the pot, it's just, stirring the same ingredients over and over and trying different recipes. It doesn't tell you where the ingredients came from. They keep evading the issue. And if you try to talk to evolutionists and put them in a corner and say, look, you have to deal with origins, they say, no, evolution means change. We don't have to think about origins. Well, yes, you do if you're basing a whole bunch of other things, these implications on it, and infiltrating the thoughts of everyone, especially in the Western world, and saying you have no purpose. Yeah, it's a big deal. This is not just a trivial thing. So let me go on here in the article. The author concludes by noting that it was Darwin's theory of evolution that provided a crucial plank for the platform and mechanism of materialism that has been the stage of most Western thought. Another text even stated directly that humans were created by random processes, not a loving, purposeful God. And another quote, the real difficulty in accepting Darwin's theory has always been that it seems to diminish our significance. Evolution asked us to accept the proposition that, like all other organisms, we too are the products of a random process. As far as science can show, we are not created for any special purpose or as any part of any universal design. End of quote. They go on, these texts are all clearly teaching religious ideas, not science. And that's the key. They are teaching a religion. And it's not a new religion. People will say, well, evolution was always believed by the ancients. Well, yeah, it's false religion. They go on here. An excellent example is a text that openly ruled out not only theistic evolution, but any role for God in nature and demonstrated. So in other words, they're dealing with the theistic evolutionist idea anyway, but for any role of God in nature, and demonstrated that Darwinism threatened theism by showing that humans in all life could be explained by natural selection without the intervention of a God. That's the whole purpose of, and people deny that too, is to have an explanation for apparent design without a designer. In other words, denial of reality is what evolution boils down to. They go on, evolutionary randomness and uncertainty had replaced a deity having conscious, purposeful human characteristics. It was designed to get rid of God. There's no evading this fact. Another quote, the Darwinian view that present-type organisms were not created spontaneously, but formed in a succession of selective events that occurred in the past, contradicted the common religious view. And it's not just a religious view, it's a sensible view that there could be no design, biological or otherwise, without an intelligent designer. In this scheme, a God of design and purpose is not necessary. Well, not if you are in denial of logic and reason and evidence. Anyway, going on in the quote, religion has been bolstered by the comforting idea. They say it's comforting. Well, what are they doing with evolution? But comforting themselves that there will be no accounting for their lives and their souls. Anyway, the comforting idea that humanity was created in the image of a God to rule over the world and its creatures. Religion provided emotional solace. See what they're doing here. A set of ethical and moral values. Nevertheless, faith in religious dogma has been eroded by natural explanation of its mysteries. In other words, again, they're admitting that's the purpose of evolution. The positions of the creationist and scientific world appear irreconcilable. Well, no, it's because reality is irreconcilable with evolutionary theory. There's a website I've often mentioned before called Science Against Evolution, and the guy only brings up religion if his critics do. But science itself, real empirical science, destroys evolution, and so does logic and reason, as we've seen. So going on here in the article, Darwin himself taught a totally atheistic, naturalistic view of origins. He even once said, I would give nothing for the theory of natural selection if it requires miraculous additions at any one stage of descent. In other words, he, by definition, said we have to rule out God. He didn't care what the evidence was. He would find a godless counter story for it. Okay. John Alcock, an evolutionary biologist, therefore concluded that we exist solely to propagate the genes within us. Well, that's a purpose, isn't it? So much for lack of purpose. Why should nature care if it is perpetuated? It can't care. It can't have a goal. It can't move upward. It can't move downward. It can only reach stasis, equilibrium, nothingness. And the more time you do that, like I said, the worse it gets for evolution. Anyway, going on in the article, leading Darwinian scholar Janet Brown makes it very clear that Darwin's goal was the arduous task of reorienting the way Victorians looked at nature. To do this, Darwin had to convince the world that ideas about a benevolent, nearly perfect natural world and those that believed beauty was given to things for a purpose were wrong. that the idea of a loving God who created all living things and brought men and women into existence was a fable. Well, they replaced it with another fable is all they did. Another quote, the world steeped in moral meaning, which helped mankind seek out higher goals in life. There's where your progress comes from, knowing there's a purpose and an accountability. But anyway, the world steeped in moral meaning, which helped mankind seek out higher goals in life, was not Darwin's. Darwin's view of nature was dark, black, where most men and women generally believed in some kind of design in nature, some kind of plan and order, and felt a deep-seated, mostly inexpressible belief that their existence had a meaning. Darwin wanted them to see all life as empty of any divine purpose. And in other words, it says more about Darwin and his ilk than it does about any kind of fact or observation. Darwin hated the idea of a God to whom he would give an account. Therefore, he came up with this idea. And it wasn't just him. He wasn't the first. He's just being used as the example of the one who popularized it and to whom people appeal. I read an article about some crazy professor who never, after he calmed down, never recanted anything, spent 2 hours on a college campus berating Christians who were using free speech to talk about, the gospel and things like that in a free area of the campus, not in a classroom. And this professor ran out and started shouting, "Praise Darwin," and getting atheist students to chant, "Praise Darwin." I mean, these people are in a religion. Anyway, they don't want God, they want Darwin, because Darwin is just like them. They want to bring God down to their level. They want to make God impersonal because they don't want to give an account. They want to do what they want to do, and they don't want God over them. That's the whole underpinning of evolution. It has nothing to do with science. It's a philosophy. Going on in the article, Darwin knew how difficult it was to abandon such a view. And hold on a second, I thought I had this thing on repeat. Sorry, it was frozen on the sun there. Hopefully that'll keep going now. And hopefully you're seeing it. Anyway, Darwin knew how difficult it was to abandon such a view, but realized that for evolution to work, nature must ultimately be governed entirely by chance. Brown concludes, quote, the pleasant outward face of nature was precisely that, only an outward face, precisely that, only an outward face. Underneath was perpetual struggle, species against species, individual against individual. Life was ruled by death. Destruction was the key to reproductive success. Well, there's a statement. Going on in the quote, all the theological meaning was thus stripped out by Darwin and replaced by the concept of competition. All the telos, the purpose on which natural theologians base their ideas of perfect adaptation, was redirected into Malthusian Darwinian struggle. What most people saw as God-given design, he saw as mere adaptations to circumstance, adaptations that were meaningless except for the way in which they helped an animal or plant to survive, which is circular reasoning. That's what evolution is. It is circular reasoning. It's begging the question. Going on, neo-Darwinist Richard Dawkins recognized the purposelessness of such a system. Quote, in a universe of blind physical forces, genetic replication, some people are going to get hurt. Other people are going to get lucky, and you won't find any rhyme or reason in it, nor any justice. The universe we observe has precisely the properties we would expect if there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. Well, then what is he so upset about? Why does he care if there are creationists if it doesn't matter in the end anyway? Every fiber of his being, every action, every word Richard Dawkins says or does calls himself a liar. If there were no purpose, he wouldn't care. Going on after the Dawkins quote, how widely is this view held by scientists? One study of 149 leading biologists found that 89.9% believe that evolution has no ultimate purpose or goal except survival. Why should it even have that? And we are just a cosmic accident existing at the whim of time and chance. There are what I call their magic wand that turns frogs into princes, their fairy tale belief that, there's a saying that evolution is a fairy tale for adults, and it's true. Because time and chance can't do anything. Anyway, going on in the quote, a mere 6% believe that evolution has a purpose. Almost all of those who believe that evolution has no purpose were atheists. This is only one example that Summers and Rosenberg call the destructive power of Darwinian theory. That is to say, its purpose is to destroy belief in a creator, especially the Christian God. Because you can find evolution in other religions. You can find it in what's loosely called New Age. It is evolutionary at its heart. And here again, it answers no questions. Anything evolutionary, anything perpetual that assumes something existed for all eternity, but never tries to explain where that came from, is evolution. And people will say, well, where did God come from? I'm saying first cause, philosophical first cause that must be supernatural by definition, is the only explanation for anything physical existing. The first cause is the first designer. And even simulation theory cannot escape this fact that their theory does no more to explain this design life than evolution that just tells you don't believe it's design, it's an illusion. Then the section in the article, and again, I will post the link to the article in the chat for you that I've been reading from in case you just got here. And it has I'm down at the section about halfway down here that says purpose in Christianity. Christianity teaches that God made the universe as a home for humans. If the universe evolved purely by natural means, then it just exists, and any purpose for its existence can only be that which humans themselves attribute to it. But our own experience and intellectual attainments argue against this. The similarity, of human constructed machines and the orderly functioning of the universe is the basis for the design argument. Just as a machine requires a designer and a builder, so too the universe that we see requires a designer and a builder. Determining the purpose of something depends on the observer's worldview. To a non-theist, the question, what is the purpose of a living organism structure, means only how does a structure aid survival? They're reading it through their religious lens. Going on, quoting the article, eyesight and legs would therefore have nothing to do with the enjoyment of life. They are merely an unintended byproduct of evolution. Unintended. Biologists, excuse me about the raspy voice, consistently explain everything from coloration to sexual habits solely on the basis of survival. Orthodox neo-Darwinism, interesting term, but true, views everything as either an unfortunate or fortuitous event resulting from the outworking of natural law and random naturally selected mutations. Conversely, creationists interpret all reality according to beliefs about God's purpose for humans. Evolutionists can usually explain even contradictory behavior, but creationists look beyond this and try to determine what role it plays in God's plan. So in other words, evolution has no higher ground to stand on scientifically or religiously or philosophically than any theism. It's just another religion. Conclusions on the article, Orthodox evolution teaches that the living world has no plan or purpose except survival. It is random, undirected, and heartless. Humans live in a world that cares nothing for us. Our minds are simply masses of meat or fat, depending on who you ask, and no divine plan exists to guide us. These teachings are hardly neutral, but rather openly teach religion, the religion of atheism and nihilism. The courts have consistently approved teaching this anti-Christian religion in public schools and have blocked all attempts to neutralize these clearly religious ideas. As the word of God states, this is 2 Timothy 4:3-4, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but will, after their own lust, keep to themselves teachers having itching ears, and they will turn away their ears from truth and turn to fables. That's exactly what evolution is, and a lot of other things are, the turning to fables. And I see also, again, it seems that my video has stopped. There's just weirdness going on with which window is at the top, it seems. I'm not sure why that's not showing right now. But that is the article, and I'm going to close the window I was reading for the articles. I think it's messing with the video. But I hope you see the point here that evolution in any form, whether it is purely pretending to be scientific or not, is a denial of reality. And like I said, whether you want to believe in some kind of religious flavor of that, whatever it is, whether it's New Age, Babylonian, what's the term, theoretical physics, quantum physics, any of those things, they're all evolution at their heart. They're all saying you don't have to give an account to anybody. And even if you believe in karma, which ironically a lot of atheists do, which is belief in God, but a God of their own making. But even if you believe in karma, you're believing in a purpose, in some entity that weighs good and bad and determines what you come back as, and somehow is not personal. They think karma itself is an evolutionary process. They believe contradictory things. Okay, so they have no advantage, as you would see on an article on my website, that I don't know if the video is going to stop if I go and look for that. I will try to get my article on atheism, because it's saying the same thing that I've been getting at here, and you can read it yourself. And like I said, I hope the video is still showing, but I don't know if it is. It keeps... can you guys see the video? Is it running for you or not? I think it disappears every time I click on a window that goes in front of the video window, which I don't know. That's annoying. Anyway, that link I just posted is to my blog, where I have a breakdown of atheism, which is evolution is their religion. So is karma. So is any philosophical or religious belief, whatever title you want to give it. Everything is evolutionary in nature to some extent, that God is just a higher evolved being. And that's the same with the simulation theory. And all of them, some will give you some kind of purpose. Like I said, with Richard Dawkins, he's a case study in contradiction, because he has a passionate religious zealot attitude against anything that isn't Darwinian evolution atheism. But why, if there is no purpose? Why does he care what anyone believes if there is no purpose? Why not let people just go naturally believing whatever they want? It's because it's a religion. It's because they have something to protect, which is non-accountability for how they live. They do not want God over them. They do not want their creator to tell them anything. Just as in another video, I mentioned scriptures that say, can the clay say to the potter, you're clumsy, you don't know what you're doing, you did it wrong? And that's what people do. They fault the creator. They hate the Christian God especially. They say he did it wrong. They never fault Satan for messing it up, or people for letting Satan mess it up. It's all what is here and now, and we were born in a messed up slave world, and so they think that's what God made. Well, that's what Satan wants them to think. That's what the Gnosticism, Luciferianism, Theosophy, quantum physics, everything believes that if there is a God, he's a poor designer. And they could do a better job, of course. But it's all ego. It all boils down to ego. I've heard so many New Agers talk about getting rid of your ego, but getting rid of the Christian God especially is the ultimate act of ego. It's the calling the potter clumsy and incompetent. That is ego. That is total ego. So we do live in a designed and purposeful realm. I've been hopefully now and then showing pictures of that I've taken from my own backyard. All of these are taken from my own backyard. And I just don't know why it is that such people talk about how it's possible to talk about their lack of ego while mocking anybody who disagrees with them. People who will say, there's something wrong with you for being religious and I don't believe I know, are contradicting themselves and showing their ego. And as I've said many times, they are okay with you seeking truth, always seeking, always changing, just like science, so-called, but they hate it when you find it. They hate it when you say, John 14:6, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. Nobody comes to the Father but by me. They hate that. They say, oh, you Christians think you're right and everyone else is wrong. Well, that's called finding the truth, first of all. And second of all, it's called you being a hypocrite because you think you've found the truth, that there is no truth, which is self-contradictory. Because as soon as you say nothing is knowable, you're saying something is knowable. It's a self-contradictory philosophical absurdity. So I don't know what else to say about it except that if someone believes in evolution in any form, whether it's scientific, atheist, naturalistic evolution, or religious evolution, or simulated evolution, you know, like in sim theory, it's all the same thing. It's all, I don't want God to be the boss of me. And I'm claiming I don't have an ego while I've got one that says my creator can't tell me what to do. That's what it's all about. But I don't know what else to say other than just to point this out. And the fact that you can see we've got maybe, you know, less than 10 people that watch quality videos, and, you know, people flock to the stuff that is basically social media bickering endlessly about, you know, dissecting a blade of grass to see what it's made of, what it's made of, what it's made of, and never asking why it was made or the purpose of life or who made it, or, you know, I'm not saying it's bad to do science. I love to do science. I mean, I've taken these pictures because of that. But the fact is that they get distracted by not, you know, basically not seeing the forest for the trees. That bird there, they were all from my backyard. I love the camera, the P900, and you can see amazing detail in these birds that is design. I mean, how can it not be? How can anything gradually evolve the ability to fly with the hollow bones and the feathers and the know-how to move the wings to fly? You know, this is why it took people so long to figure it out, a way to change the air, you know, cause the air pressure changes, and the fact that the wing is thickest at the front. They learned that all from God, from the ultimate designer. And flowers, they, you know, they'll say, everybody will say, and it's true, that they follow a pattern. Well, what's a pattern? It's a design. It's not an accident. It's not randomness. If you have randomness, you have homogeny, you have nothing forming, because it can't, because there's no purpose. That's why I'm not an evolutionist. It's absurd scientifically and philosophically. It is just another religion. But these birds and flowers are clearly designed by a far greater intelligence than our own. I like that one that happened to catch that bird trying to scratch its ear or whatever. And that's not the best picture of Jupiter. I've had better ones, but the sky was not cooperating. The clouds kept going in front of it, and I still have trouble with making small adjustments on my tripod. I did get a new fluid mount head for the camera on that tripod, found an adapter to make it work, but it still requires, when you're that zoomed in, you have to almost have a motorized control system where it can move it just a tiny, tiny bit. And maybe someday I'll get something like that. But right for now, this is the best I got. And it does help some. I have an easier time adjusting the camera, but it's still, when I tighten it down, it moves. And just very frustrating. But anyway, Saturn broke through a place in the clouds. They parted just for me because I prayed for it. Come on, I want to see Saturn tonight. And the clouds parted, and there it was. I couldn't see much of anything else but Saturn. Eventually, I saw Mars, but it was pretty foggy. Anyway, got a decent view of Saturn. Tried to keep it in the center of the frame. That's the hard part to do. But that is totally zoomed in with the P900. And there's always going to be heat distorting it. And the more I look at it, the more I'm like, I can't tell whether you're looking at the bottom or the top of Saturn, you know, at that angle, because there's a little dip in the top ring that makes you think that the body of the main circle is in front of it. But then at the bottom, it looks like the ring is in front of it. So, or behind it. It depends on how, you know, what second you look at it. So I can't tell. As they call it, the winged planet. They say that about so-called Nibiru, but I think that is a misunderstanding, mistranslation by Sitchin, who thought that Nibiru meant a specific thing when it meant crossing. And so there's plenty of problems with that. There are people who get irate with me to dare to question Zecharia Sitchin, but I'm not the only one questioning him. And so they poison the well by just dismissing any scholar I would claim that showed that Sitchin was wrong, because neither of us, none of us speaks Sumerian, and people who do say no, Sitchin is wrong. So anyway, that's Saturn, whatever Saturn may be. The Bible calls them all wandering stars, which is where we get the word planet. It means wanderer. Planetes means wanderer. So that's just what planets are stars that wander. And they happen to have more features in them, as it seems, than stars that don't wander. So be that as it may, that's all we can get from observation. And some of those flower pictures earlier, they were kind of pixelized. I don't know why, because the originals are not. They're very nice and crisp. And I don't know why I tried it twice, the video program, to make that, and it came out pixelated on those two flowers. But these are all pictures taken this year from my backyard, most of them from the last couple months. Let's take a look at the chat, although I said I can't really, change windows because it makes the video go black on the screen. I don't know what to do about that, but let's see. We have Arwen, Lev Kung Fu, Shaolin, Maika's Place. I hope I said that right. 444 The Truth, and Truth Freeze, and Joellen. Thanks for all of you coming. I have been just, as I said, musing about evolution and the hypocrisy of evolution and any form of evolution, whether it's this pseudo-scientific religion evolution, or something like karma, reincarnation evolution, or the endless regression of simulation theory, or aliens, evolved aliens. Those are all evolution. They all rely on an endless regression back in time, which answers no questions at all, because everything we observe, there's one of those pixelated flowers, but everything we observed is that things run down. That's the law of entropy, that things run down. And you cannot answer the question by either A, like the evolutionists do, refuse to talk about origins, or B, to make it go back endlessly and never explain how it started. So other than fits and starts on my slideshow while I was talking about this stuff, I posted link to the article I read through, and also an article that I wrote about atheism and why I reject it. And any sort of evolutionary theory, any way around a creator, an intelligent, purposeful, loving creator, any attempt is philosophically void and self-contradictory and scientifically in denial. Where there's design, there's a designer. It's that simple. And ultimately, you give an account to your creator. So if people want to plug their ears and scream and say, la, 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 I don't want to believe there's a God to whom I must give an account, they can do that, but there will be a judgment day, and there will be justice. Evolutionists seem to hate justice, but they still will go to the courts to fight to keep anything but Darwinian religion out of public education. And of course, they control the media, they control the military, they control finance, they control everything. And no, that's not God's fault. He allows us to give us, he lets us give enough rope to hang ourselves, but in the end, this will be stopped. It will be stopped soon, judging by the actions of people in the world morally. This is bankrupt, and corruption is from top to bottom. And the political alignments and the things going on, especially in the Middle East, are telling us how late it is. So I have prophecy videos if anybody's interested in what next or what to look for. And at the risk of blanking out the screen again, I'm going to go get my prophecy link and let you look at that if you haven't seen it before. And there we go. So, yeah, there's a lot of scientific details that I just study what interests me in. Generally, biology, chemistry has not interested me, but more astronomy. But there are still too many things that can't be answered. That's why I have a cosmology playlist where I just challenge the standard theory. Let's see, Aurora Borealis. Yeah, I go mostly with the electric universe theory, plasma theory, that these are electromagnetically explained. I've also done things on gravity, on Earth shape, problems with standard cosmology, like I said, and what the moon may or may not be, what the sun may or may not be. And that's all I can do. I'm pretty well burned out on all the Earth-shaped debate realm. And the Christian realm, as far as online communities go, whether they're YouTube or Facebook or any places I've been, message boards, the problem always is the people. It's not the topic. And there's, trolls, there's agents, there's fakes and liars and people who are up to no good, data mining, whatever it is, just trying to ruin your reputation because it's fun. So I don't know. I just not a group joiner these days, especially. So you say there may be aurora borealis tonight. Do you know what latitudes? I've seen them before. I didn't have a camera on me, of course. Many decades ago, I think, I don't know, over 20 years ago, my husband and I were driving north on a major interstate to visit family for Christmas, and we saw Christmas colored aurora. They were red and green and, very vivid colors. It was an awesome display that we saw. And we are at about the 39th parallel. So that was pretty far south. It was cold. It was winter. And I have seen one major meteor, whatever those are, driving west one night. We were taking a different route north and to see our family up north, we call it. And we were driving west on the other major interstate and saw a shooting star very low. It was on a Friday night because I remember people saying we were at a football game and everybody saw it. It was awesome. So nature is awesome, but it is created and designed, and there's no denying that, no matter which form of evolution a person chooses to believe. Let's see, the 26th or 27th. Yeah, we'll see how the weather cooperates. I'm thinking we might have clear skies then. I hope we do. It's been very overcast for a week. We had before that, a couple of weeks of drought, and all the green plants turned brown and went dormant. And then we had a monsoon, and I'm hoping we'll have some nice in-between weather for a while and some clear skies. Yeah, we're tired of this world, and I'm, I like to hang around with people and chat and discuss ideas, but you just can't anymore, even in the live chats, because whether it's mods or not, people will just, twist your words and insult you to get a rise out of you. And, or Christians will call you a heretic or lost or devilish or something like that. I'm just tired of everybody pretty much, except the few wonderful people who come here. I'm probably going to be scarce at a lot of places. It gets boring and lonely, but I will find something to fill the time. But I'm curious to what parallel that the aurora will be seen at. I'll have to look that up. Seen in southern states. Oh, in 96 you're talking about? Yeah, it could have been around then. Let's see. Yeah, maybe, possibly about that time. Let's see. All I need to make atheism extremely improbable is one word: eclipses. Yeah, there's a lot of things you could do. I mean, atheism shoots itself in the foot. That's why there's a site, like I said, called Science Against Evolution, because science is the enemy of evolution. It's not theism that's the enemy of evolution, because evolution is a religion. It absolutely is. Let's see. Coast to Coast mentioned. Yep. Yeah, that would have been about the General Times. Yeah, blocking trolls. I've got a lot of people blocked, but I can't block the entire internet. And I just get tired. And also you have to consider what sites you're supporting. People who may or may not be what they seem to be. And I have no way of knowing, but I just get tired of it. I just get tired of the whole, even people who aren't necessarily trolls will sometimes just go off the rail and attack you for being a Christian or attack you for whatever. So, So yeah, also since you're here, Arwen, about the other day I heard you talking about the globe of the heavens that really has no connection to the system of longitude and latitude on Earth. The only time they intersect is when they're talking about the ecliptical plane and stuff like that, as far as trying to determine the globe of the heavens, which seems to revolve around us. But that really has nothing to do with earthly longitude, latitude. As far as I've been able to look up, those things are arbitrary. They're based upon, they just chose Greenwich, England. It used to be someplace else, I think in Greece maybe, but they chose Greenwich, England, and they just follow the horizon, or the sunrise, sunset around the world like that. But you might want to look that up, because the globe of the heavens, like I said, I don't think has any necessary connection to the system on the Earth. They're both arbitrary. Even if the globe of the heavens, so-called, was extracted from the lines they put on their globe Earth model. The thing is, you can argue about longitude, latitude without mentioning the globe of the heavens. So yeah, the sun is part of that. I mean, the sun, the moon, and stars revolve around us. There's no doubt about that. But as far as the globe of the heavens as a term used in astronomy, it's really not necessarily connected, but it's no big deal. It's just something that might want to be careful about defining terms on, and whether you're using it astronomically. Yeah, the lines on of longitude and latitude are ultimately based on the sun, because the sun casts, a light to a certain extent, and it ends at a certain point, and that line moves across the Earth continually in a predictable pattern. And that's how they make time zones. And so the question is, can you have those same effects? And the fact that the Earth is supposedly tilted, those lines run from what is supposed to be the axis of the Earth, pole to pole. And that can't be. If the Earth is tilted toward the sun, then those lines should be angled. And so it's, it's messed up. But it's just, I like to be precise in terms. And so, but the thing is, it gets so frustrating trying to post in chat of scientific things that both sides often either poorly define or are confused about, or just are contradictory on both sides. People don't care if you're sitting there going, and especially if you can't post a link. It's like, here's documentation to prove what I'm saying, and nobody cares. They don't talk to you. They don't acknowledge you. It's usually only the trolls, which I have blocked, so I don't know if anybody's acknowledging me, but it happens to a lot of people. You try to inject something rational and supportable, documented, and people don't care. Most people don't care. They're just there to argue, and it's just very frustrating. So anyway, that's why I once in a while will go to my channel when I have enough to put together a video on, and say, just make a point, not to say that people, very many of them that would actually benefit from watching the stuff, will ever watch it. But the thing is that this is the only place I really have to make a case. And so I don't know. If I get into chats, it's just going to be very light and hit and run, because, nobody cares about depth. And that's what I always saw as a problem, moving away from message boards and blogs to the Facebook, YouTube realm, because not only is it harder to search for a particular thing anybody said or argued, but it's also fleeting. You can make the best videos in the world, but people will forget about it because they have the memory of a goldfish. But yeah, the thing is that I don't know. I just get so frustrated with people in general's lack of concern for what's true or accurate, and for lack of depth, lack of memory of anything that was said. And it's just pointless. I'm a purpose person, which is another reason I did this video, because evolution in any form is against purpose. And so it's no wonder to me that a lot of people enjoy the endless hamster wheel of argument. it doesn't go anywhere and they don't care. And I care. So I just get so burnt out on that stuff. And so I don't know. Thinking, like I said, I thought about trying to look for a job. And the more I think about it, it's like, man, I've been out of the working for someone else for over 20 years. And I'm 60 years old now. It's like, what would I do? I don't have the best vision, hearing. Got arthritis, weak tendons in my feet now, arthritis in my hips. It's like, what am I going to do? And I don't want to do web work very much anymore, because when you do web work, any kind of programming, you have, especially the web, you have to keep up with constantly changing technology that's changing faster and faster, web languages, access methods for various things, especially databases. It just is a continually speeding up treadmill, and I'm getting off. And so I got to find something else I can do, like some kind of desk job, but it would keep me off the internet, which, you know, I can still do. But again, it's hard to find any kind of job that wouldn't drive me bananas, just like the net does. Anyway, I hate cleaning house. I know, I'm just looking at it. Sounds like excuses, but I absolutely hate cleaning house. You should see my house. I don't like clutter, but scrubbing and cleaning, like I said, with arthritis, it makes it look worse by the time I'm done. So I bribe someone else to do it for me. Let's see, look at the chat some more. Latitude. Oops, I looked like I blinked out the video again. Sorry about that. Let's see. Yeah, salvation. It doesn't hurt to always add that. You never know who's going to watch a video or why. But you sure won't find any kind of purpose in evolution or karma, reincarnation, New Age, Gnosticism, Luciferianism, quantum mechanics. You won't find purpose or justice there, or peace. Let me look at the chat some more for a second. Let's see. Yeah, I had done websites for 20 some years. And like I said, it's just about impossible to keep up with the technology. Hey, Chow, good to see you. The other problem with me getting supplements into me is that I have some kind of problem with swallowing pills that I didn't used to have. I think something to do with my hiatal hernia that I've had reset numerous times, and things just get stuck at the top of my stomach, and I have to wait for them to clear. And food usually clears pretty easily, but pills are rigid and they don't. So I can only swallow the tiniest capsules. I've tried turmeric. There was a effervescent tablet, but you can't afford enough of it to make any difference. And that's the problem, is I would need a non-pill form thing that doesn't taste so terrible I can't swallow it. And I can't afford that stuff. That's the problem. Is I know a lot of people just can't afford what they need in the quantity they need. And growing your own, here again, I have the opposite of a green thumb. The only thing I seem to grow are thistles and dandelions and irises. I can grow the irises for whatever reason, but working with my hands is not really much of an option. So here again, if you can't work with your hands, you pay somebody else to do it, or you bribe them in some way, and so that's not working out for me. But anyway, but I did try turmeric, add to coffee and tea, but how much would you need? That's the problem. Hey there, Pete Atchins. I just don't want to say your real name. I know who you are, but you know, it's a privacy thing. I don't like to say people's real names unless they give it. But yeah, knowing what you need in what deliverable form and affording it. Or you say a teaspoon of something. Black seed costs about $20 a bottle. Yeah, what we need is maybe somebody put up a page somewhere online where you can list affordable non-pill form supplements for various things, because I used to be into that, a couple decades ago, but everybody had so many different ideas. I concluded that there was nothing safe to eat, drink, or breathe on Earth. So, but I'm willing to try some things, but I know turmeric works and on some of these other things, but it's getting it in the right absorbable form in enough quantity at a low enough price. It's the problem. So that's, if you guys who know those things could put together a document that we could read somewhere and reference and possible sources, that would be awesome. Yeah, the money thing, I've got documents about that too, on the problem with people needing a medium of exchange, because you can only barter for so long. A tiny community can get away with barter, but the more people there are in a community, the more you need a medium of exchange. It's just being practical. Let's see. All right. Oh, bird. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of snapping at the right moment, because birds don't stay still, especially hummingbirds. The bird bath that you saw earlier is just a new thing my husband put up for me to try to, it's very shallow on purpose to try to get hummingbirds to come there, because they're the hardest ones to get. I did have them in one of my other videos. I had a little bit of hummingbird footage from the one little bush we have in the corner of our yard. But other than that, that's going to be, I don't like to put out seed and stuff, because the squirrels will take it. The ants will come. If you put up sugar water for hummingbirds, the ants will come, and we've already had too much trouble with ants. Does frozen yogurt help? I'm not especially a big fan of the regular yogurt. I can stand it. I do take Culturel. It comes in a tiny capsule. I take that. It does help because if I don't take it, I get a lot of belching, which tells me I'm not digesting my food. That's a good sign of not digesting, is if you belch a lot. And that happens to me if I don't take my Culturel. So that's working. It is kind of pricey, but I can get it at Sam's Club in a large quantity that lasts me for at least a month. So I can do that. So I do get some probiotics. Journey's Wake, thanks for coming. Cheapest stuff to use is baking soda. All right. Like I said, details, write it down and put it somewhere online that I can reference. ACV, yep. That is, if I remember right, is apple cider vinegar. I don't like vinegar. I could put it on a salad with something else. What was it? One of my sisters made was half and half, like maple syrup and vinegar. I think it was something like that. Anyway, like I said, I've heard so many different ideas on what works, what doesn't work. And whether it works for a certain person, you almost have to get a natural healer to assess you biologically to find out what works for you. So any kind of documentation would be awesome. If, you can post it in the comments under the video. If you have a link to something that you recommend that's affordable and not in pill form, that'd be awesome. Let's see. Yep. Enzymes are a big deal. Enzymes and probiotics. How to get those down my throat is the issue. So, right now it's getting to be lunchtime, and I might also go outside, see what's going on in nature, so get some more pictures. But thanks for all the suggestions and for coming at all. Yeah, best way to ingest things in the least gag-inducing way and wallet-reducing way, that would be awesome. Like I said, post a link in the video when it renders. That would be awesome. Let's see. Jay Burns, how would you describe further, as you said, evolution is without purpose? Well, I didn't say that. They said that. And Richard Dawkins says that. Everybody who is a true evolutionist says there is no purpose. Okay. Anyway, realize that this question seems naive. I promise a genuine curiosity as to your viewpoint. My viewpoint is that design is obvious. It's observed. And evolution denies design. It says it's just an illusion because evolution has no purpose. So yeah, evolution is absolute bunk. It's denial. It's saying there is no purpose in design when there clearly is one. Yeah, no problem at all. So, yeah, I do hangouts when I think I have something to say for at least 10 minutes, unless I put up just video and try to find some music for it like I did the one time. I just thought I'd run this in the background because it's nature, because I'm talking about, look at this design. I mean, it isn't just beautiful, and we don't just see it beautiful because evolution, because blind processes, that is nonsense. I'm just saying systems design, there's irreducible complexity, and even the heavenly bodies follow courses and have design features. And the Bible says that God has named each of the stars, and says you can't even count them, and I've got them named. And so I'm just showing the design and the complexity of nature. Perplexity too, I almost said. That's also a good word. The design and complexity of nature, the fact that there is evolution is impossible to explain it. It's just any form, whether it's religious or scientific, evolution is just a way to deny God. Try not to do Bible versions issues with me, because I've gone over that before. Yeah, that's either way, whichever side of it you're on. I mean, I kind of put a lid on that, but yeah, to minimize Bible translation bias, you have to get a bunch of different Bible translations from different perspective, different denominations, different kings, different whatever, because they'll each have a different thing that they have a blind spot for. And so that's why I'm into the Greek and, the Septuagint for the Old Testament. And it's just much more difficult to read, so I haven't done a lot of that, but I consult it. I use the interlinears and lexicons for that. The same with the Hebrew. It's one of many puzzle pieces, and try to minimize translation error as much as possible. But you still got to, talk to people who are experts in those things. Experts make the dictionaries, and they make the tools we use, so we can't just brush them all aside. And I'm not saying anybody here is doing that. I'm just, making some points. But yeah, there are people with agendas always behind translations. Yeah, you do the best you can. You work with probabilities. And when it comes to what the Bible originally said, we do what we can do. And that's true of anybody, especially critics of the Bible. I don't think they do their due diligence either. But we try. So, like I said, I need to go do some things. And we'll see y'all later. Thanks for coming. Spread it around, and try to remember not to get caught up in the minutiae, the details of whatever's going on. Try to always look at why you're doing what you're doing, and bring that perspective wherever you go. So, yeah, eclipses are perplexing too. Yeah, stranger than fiction news. Yeah, end times are definitely here. Like I said, I gave a prophecy document link, and there's a lot of good prophecy channels, but you have to be careful here too. There's a lot of disinfo. Everywhere you go, there's disinfo. And so read the Bible yourself, look at what it says about the end times, and we're definitely ripe for that. So, yeah, take care of fellow believers, try to spread the actual gospel without all the complications. People are still pushing works salvation, water baptism, speaking in tongues, all those things, lordship salvation. And people don't even understand what that term means. Well, of course, you treat Jesus as your Lord, but that's not how you get saved. You get saved by faith in the risen Jesus. That's the thing I wanted to end with, is that the gospel is, and it's in 1 Corinthians 15 and 2 Corinthians 5, put those together, and you get that Jesus lived, died, rose again, according to predictions in Scripture, to prophecy. That's the fact that we believe. And then the motivation for spreading the gospel we spread is that fact, plus that if we believe that is true, we accept it as true, then we will be reconciled with God and adopted as his child. And if we understand that and accept that, then the natural outcome should be that we are grateful and we don't beat our fellow servants and we eagerly await his return. Those are what I consider normal, healthy reactions to the gospel. If you understand it properly and have accepted it genuinely, then you will live that way. And there are people who act inconsistently with that. But that doesn't mean they're not saved. It means they're not growing. Okay? So, anyway, thanks for coming. That's the gospel. Spread that. Remember the big picture and remember why you're here. There is a purpose. And recognize evolutionary thinking when you see it and counter it. And if you can't, just make a reference to something you can. And I know they make it difficult. If you don't have a wrench, you can't post a link, but you can always wait till the video uploads and post it then. It'll let you do it then. So anyway, thanks for coming, and we'll see y'all later.